Thank you. Now over to Reba for your sermon.
Thank you, Marion. So, as I indicated, we're going to look at Moses because he was really quite incredible. At the point where now he's going to hand over to Joshua, Moses seems to have now achieved everything he was destined to achieve. For him, there would be no more battles to fight, no more miracles to perform, no more prayers to make on behalf of the people. However, it is what Moses does now at this point that bears the mark of greatness. For the final month of his life, he stood before the assembled people and delivered a series of addresses we now know as the Book of Deuteronomy or Devarim, literally words. In these addresses, as you heard, he reviewed the people's past and foresaw their future. He gave them laws. Linking all these details of laws and history into a single big overarching vision, he taught the people to see themselves as Kadash, a holy people, the only people in the world whose sovereignty and lawgiver was God himself. If someone knew nothing about Judaism and the Jewish people and were to ask, this is what the sages say, for a single book that would explain both who the Jews are and why they do what they do, the best answer would be to read the book of Devarim. No other book encloses in such a dramatic way the elements of Judaism, but not just as a belief, not as a blind faith, but a way of life. In the last months of his life, Moses ceased to be the liberator, the miracle worker, the redeemer, and instead became Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is what I want to discuss with you. Became Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher. Moses surely knew that some of his greatest achievements would not last forever. The people he had rescued one day would suffer exile and persecution again. They say that he had this great instinct, this great foresight that Hashem had given him. The next time, as we in this modern era, they would not have a Moses to do miracles. So he planted this understanding in their minds, a vision in their minds, hope in their hearts, and strength that the words he would now share with them, and he reminded them of everything they'd ever done, bringing them to the point that in spite of sins along the way, we all know of that, the golden calf and other things and moaning, even saying, and I didn't read it today, but in this portion, they even say to Moses, why did God hate us so much to bring us here to die in the desert? That is what humanity is like. We do lose faith. We do have thoughts of great fear. We do blame not only God sometimes. There are so many people in today's era saying, why did God bring this punishment on us? And as you know, we don't believe that God brings punishment. We bring it with our own actions. And we've mentioned that so much over the Shabbat services of this pandemic. But Moses became the greatest prophet, not because only of those miracles, because of so many things we've seen him do and say, but because at that last month of his life, he became a great teacher. Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik contrasted the Jewish attitude to kings and teachers as leadership types. Now, most people do not see leaders as teachers. They see them as figures of power and authority to demand and tell people what to do. We have had so many instances of that type of leadership in our current era. And I don't have to remind you of Trump, of Zuma, of so many leaders, of dictators coming up now, or what they call right-wing demagogues. And so the Jewish way is they do not like this type of leader. When a leader uses his power for himself, this is not the Jewish way. And when a leader who's been in power for many years forgets to care about the people and rather about himself, we see a change of government, as we have recently, Baruch Hashem, in Israel. So, in the Jewish religion, it's very, very interesting. As Rabbi Soloveitchik said, of blessed memory, a king is commanded, in those days they talked about kings, not to consider himself better than his fellow Israelites, nor turn from the law to the right or to the left. In short, Judaism is at best ambivalent about a monarchy or a leadership, whether it's a king or a prime minister or a president or a chairman of a shul or a CEO, whose leadership is only about power and installing himself or herself. On the other hand, Judaism's regard for teaching and teachers is unlimited. The Talmud tells us, let the fear of your teacher be as the fear of heaven. Respect and reverence for a teacher. Now, a teacher in the Judaic sense is one who has the interest of those whom they are teaching over and above his own personal interest. In fact, a leadership as Moses, the greatest prophet, his only concern just before he was to pass on was to let the people understand how they should lead their lives, what they should avoid, so they could prosper. And indeed, we have in our lifetime seen leadership like this. Leadership under Mandela. Leadership, I trust, under the current new government in Israel. And perhaps, I'm going to mention later on, perhaps one of the greatest leaders of all. Not in our lifetime, Ben-Gurion, founding the State of Israel. So, okay, the Rambam, by the way, I thought this would amuse you, said, you've got to revere a teacher. It's even more than respect for your parents, because parents bring you into this world while teachers give you entrance to the world to come. Now, the world to come, the Olam Haba, means a world that is perfect, a world of peace, which I, thank God, we may yet still experience slowly coming in our era. So, in Judaism, someone who teaches us helps us to grow. And so it began with Moses. In his final 3 different speeches or addresses to the people, all he can think about is how they are going to handle themselves going forward. And I found a beautiful part from the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, who was so liberal and forward in his thinking. And I thought I'd like to share that with you. This is what he wrote. For 22 years as chief rabbi, I carried with me the following quotation from one of the greatest leaders of the Zionist movement, Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion. He was a secular Jew. And this incredible rabbi, Zichronom Livrucha, carried his saying with him all the time. But although he was a secular Jew, he was enough of a historian and biblical scholar to understand this dimension of leadership and said it in so eloquent words. And with this, I'd like to conclude by reading you Ben-Gurion's words, which the late chief rabbi of UK kept in his pocket from a secular Jew. That is the respect the different streams of Judaism should have for each other. That is the respect we should have for the different religions and different theologies and different ideologies. And above all, that is the respect we should have for the stranger amongst us, the refugees in the world today. And this is what Ben-Gurion said. Whether you hold office in a municipality, a small union, or in a national government, the principles are always the same. You must know what you want to achieve, be certain of your aims, and have these goals constantly in your mind. You must educate your party. You must educate the public, the wider public. You must have confidence in your people, often greater than they have in themselves. Isn't that beautiful? You must have confidence in your people, be it your congregation, be it your family members, be it your business. The people you lead, no matter in which capacity, you must have greater confidence in them than they have in themselves, so you can develop the great potential our God, Hashem, has given every human being, irrespective of background, ethnicity, or wealth or poverty. The true political leader instinctively knows the measures of mankind's capacities and can help him develop those, especially in a crisis. Look, folks, what's happening in our country at the moment. I was just sent something by a wonderful African friend of mine, which nearly brought me to tears. In fact, forgive me if I get emotional. It was a picture of a handicapped man in a wheelchair going around with one of those long sticks with a blade, point at the end of it, going around picking up the debris that people had left in a shopping center after looting. That shows us the heart of Ubuntu in South Africa, the heart of people everywhere, the vast majority of goodness, no matter in which country they are. And that is the heart of our Judaism, which Baruch Hashem, God has shared with the world. So, in your region, as a local leader, assess what is needed. Educate the public, educate those around you. Look for the good in the bad situation. As we have in South Africa now, with our people, like this man disabled in a wheelchair, and like even some of the looters, and you're not going to believe this, have now seen what they did and have offered to bring some goods back. And it's very prophetic to me, as I said, that we are reading this portion, this lamentation, which is one of the three great lamentations, in this era where we too are besieged by a plague, a fear, pandemic, panic, looting, and yet there's always hope. And as I said, it's very prophetic that this very, very time will lead us up to what we know that we start only tonight, and that is to the Tisha B'Av service, which mourns the destruction of the temple. And these 3 weeks have been so bad for us. And yet there will be light at the end of the tunnel, and it's already there. So this is what we have to teach people. In your region, in your home, in your business, in your shul, wherever you are a leader. And as a leader, your job is to teach people to have faith in adversity, to teach them to somehow bear the terrible loss and the pain of losing a loved one, be that human or animal, and to help us overcome the adversity and build a yet better and stronger tomorrow. So I suppose teaching is letting people know the difference and between maybe what they want instinctively is just to protect me and mine and let me grab for tomorrow because I'm going to have nothing. It's teaching them the difference between what they may want out of fear, out of bad conditioning and socializing, and teaching them what to want for themselves and those around them. And I'll just conclude with this. Teachers are the unacknowledged builders of the future. So any great leader, as Ben Gurion was, he already understood with his incredible Declaration of Independence. If you'd like it, I'll send it to you. Very similar to our Constitution. He understood what he had to teach the people, how to think, how to act, and how to achieve peace and happiness. So great leaders who are teachers, and indeed teachers themselves, even in a school, who don't forget to add this dimension to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and today the digital world, are the builders of a future. If any leader seeks to make lasting change, they must follow in the footsteps of Moses and become an educator. The leader as teacher, using influence not power, but spiritual and spiritual and intellectual authority. That is, there are some ultra-orthodoxy in our religion and in all religion who use their authority to try and force you to think their way, and indeed tragically even use violent words and actions to force their thinking on others. That is not the Jewish way. The teacher, building people to follow in the path of righteousness, to have compassion, to look with kindness on someone who has different views, and to be quiet and listen to those views and have a quiet discourse or conversation. That is perhaps the greatest contribution of Judaism to the world. Shabbat Shalom. Back to you, Marion.